Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Tarik and Hazel. They are on one of the iterations of 90 Day Fiancé called What Now? Let's get to the show. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and I'm also a professor. Let's watch the show and see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
I thought really the biggest thing that we were going to have to get over was Hazel's family is super religious, and I'm the complete and total opposite.
Yeah, so I don't know if I showed this clip when I was watching that season, and I didn't know what to say about it, but I guess it is worth highlighting that they had this big difference in their religion, and they couldn't have been more opposite in some ways, and yet they worked it out. There was a lot of talk between Tarik and the parents, and they worked things out. They came together. There was no hostility or accusation or putting each other down. So a real success story for this family.
My brother wanna make you my runaway girl. Will you marry me?
Yes.
Yes. Hazel and I have been engaged now for about a year. I just recently got back from the Philippines. I've been to the Philippines 3 times now to see her. And we finally have everything compiled, everything together for the K-1 visa.
Now, I will say, upon watching some of these clips, I don't think I talked about this, but it was something that was sort of building up in the back of my mind as I was watching them. I wonder about Hazel's true motivations and her sense of her own needs. The way she comes across, I wouldn't be surprised if we were to ask her what she wanted and how she wanted to live her life. If she felt like she was mainly surviving and or no one had ever really asked her those questions, and so she wasn't used to thinking in that way. You know, what do I want? What do I need? Thinking in that quote-unquote selfish mode that everyone deserves to think in, for sure. The way she comes across, I wouldn't be surprised if when we talked to her, she was like, yeah, I don't really know what I want, or, you know, I'll put up with this, or I'll tolerate that, instead of this is what I want, this is what I'm going to go for, this is what I deserve, that sort of thing. Now, maybe she is like that and she's just shy. Tarik is a great guy, and he's really nice to her from what we've seen on the show. So it doesn't look like it's a bad thing. But I guess that is a question that maybe we should keep an eye on as we continue watching.
Yo.
Good to see you. My name is Angela Watson. I'm an attorney. I've known Terry for over 10 years. He is my best friend. So it was very important to me that I counsel him about his relationship with this new lady. How's Hazel?
Great.
Well, that's good. No trouble in paradise.
Mm-mm.
When Tarik first told me that he was going to marry Hazel, I was very concerned because I just felt like, 1, I hadn't heard enough about her, and 2, I didn't feel that he knew her well enough.
So sometimes some of you will ask me about prenups or prenuptial agreements. And what I'll say is that it really depends on the couple. For some, it's a very negative thing. It is very hurtful. It's used as a weapon. It's used as a way of controlling the spouse that doesn't have as much money to begin with. And in other couples, it's fine. It's just one of the things that people do to, you know, just work it out just in case it happens. And unfortunately, divorce is pretty common. So, and everyone who gets a divorce, or the vast majority of people who get a divorce, did not predict they were going to get a divorce when they got married. So you don't know. You never know. Maybe you think, well, maybe in 10 years we'll grow apart, or maybe because of my past relationships, I don't know if I can really trust this. I really feel in love. I really feel like we're going to last forever. I hear a lot of good things from my spouse, but, you know, you never know. And I don't want to be ruined financially like I did last time. So maybe if we come up with some sort of agreement, that would at least allay some of my fears. So it really just depends on the couple. And it's not a universal negative or positive thing.
How's the visa process going?
Um, it is a lot tougher than I thought it was gonna be.
And I should say that for anything you do in a marriage, including a prenuptial agreement, it really depends on how it's received. So say you had very good intentions with the prenup and you were just trying to protect both people and you didn't think of it as some sort of attack. Well, your spouse or your future spouse might take it that way. They might feel very hurt by that. And so that's really the key, is making sure that as a couple, you both feel okay with the action, with the legal agreement, and that it doesn't start you on a bad foot.
Piling everything is super tedious.
Well, you've been my dear friend for over a decade, so I don't normally do immigration law, but of course I had to look into it because you're my brother. And so my concern for you is once you get her here, once your K-1 visa is complete, you've got 90 days to marry this young lady.
That's right.
And then if things don't work out, you've got to take care of her for 10 years. Because you know what my concerns are. You don't know her all that well, so there's still a lot of things you have to learn.
Interesting. So I didn't know that. I think I heard another person talking about this, but we've heard a lawyer confirm this, that on the visa that is often involved on the show, if they get married and then they get divorced and the person stays in the United States, I think that's the stipulation, then the Tariks of the world are responsible for the Hazels of the world on the show financially. I'm guessing that's what it means. And what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that it's a certain amount of maintenance or alimony payments that need to be made? But that is interesting, that someone could trick someone for long enough until they're actually married, and then maybe wait a year, leave because you never intended on staying with this person, and then maybe you can kind of scam the system in that way. That's interesting. I don't think Hazel is one of those people, but I guess we'll find out together, right?
Specifies what you get to keep so that the court is not deciding it for you. So you can still look out for her.
I understand the risks and all of that.
But have you spoken to her about a prenup?
About a prenup? No, I haven't. As far as prenuptial agreements go, I'm all for them in theory, but when you're talking about that in terms of your own relationship, it makes it a little bit more tricky because then you have to take the other person's feelings into account.
2 thumbs up, exactly. And Tarik is been consistently caring and consistently level-headed throughout me watching him. Maybe in the future things won't go that way for him, but he is thinking about all the right things. So if he decides not to do it, then he doesn't have to have that conversation. If he decides to go ahead with the prenuptial agreement, then I'm guessing he's going to have a very hard conversation with Hazel, and she's probably going to be hurt by that. So let's watch.
I hope that you hear me when I tell you I think that this is necessary. It's not something that you should think about. It's something that you need to do. It's my hope that things do work out for them, but I certainly hope he takes my advice and he gets himself a prenup before he officially gets married.
The question I have legally, and I'm guessing this lawyer knows, obviously, but if there is a prenuptial agreement, but legally, according to the federal government, you're responsible for the person, do those things contradict each other? I don't know.
I mean... How
do I feel?
If I wanted you to do that, would you be mad about it?
Not happy? Why?
I really didn't know how Hazel would respond. Most women's reactions is, that's insulting to me. It's just a good thing if me and you get married that I protect myself. So if me and you get divorced, that you can't just try to take everything I ever worked for.
So I don't know exactly how he's selling this right now. I think that if he wanted to sell this better, or at least not hurt her, then maybe addressing that somehow, of just like, look, I don't plan on divorcing you. I don't think we're gonna get divorced. I love you. I want to be with you forever. He's not really saying those things, so it's hard to feel good about what he's saying, I imagine, from Hazel's perspective.
So if we sit down and write one out, you don't have no problem with signing it?
Where is it? I could sign.
Everybody has small doubts, but I have known Hazel from the very beginning.
It's interesting. She took it really well, and that's another very good sign for their relationship. I mean, I suppose if you feel like, well, I don't think we're going to get a divorce, and if we did, then yeah, I'm not in it to take his money and his things, so sure, I'll sign the prenuptial agreement. That's a pretty good sign. And the fact that she withstood that hurt, I suppose. Anyone's going to be a little hurt with that. And the fact that she was able to turn that around pretty quickly is a good sign. It's also a good sign to the brother of Tarik, because the brother thinks that she is only in it for the money, and the lawyer was intimating that as well. And if she signs the prenuptial agreement, then it shows, at least it's a tick in the column of evidence that she is not in it for the money, that she is in it for Tarik.
And as far as what people's perceptions of Hazel are, this girl might just be who she says she is. If that'll help them get to that point, then good. I love you. Give me a kiss. After talking to Hazel, I will have Angela draft the prenup. My plans for the K-1 visa is to get it submitted to the government, and hopefully 6 to 8 months she can be here, and then we can get married.
I mean, we have certainly seen very angry, coming from a place of hurt behavior on this show. And this couple almost has none of that, which, what does that say? Well, I don't know. But if I were to speculate, if I'm reading it right, which of course is impossible to know because we're only seeing a little bit of the couple's life together. But if we are seeing an accurate representation of how they deal with things, it's possible that they were raised pretty well. What does that mean? Well, that means that the parents, early in life, we're talking 0 to 7, the parents were attentive, attuned, recognized the emotional state, particularly distress of the child, responded well and quick enough in a way that the child felt like the parents were paying attention and were caring about them, and that no one significantly abandoned them, no one significantly abused them. And because of those early experiences, they developed good working models, or healthy, positive working models of self and other, meaning that they believe that they're mostly good and that they're lovable people and that people will like them, and that they have some flaws, but it doesn't totally ruin their character, and that other people are the same. Other people are mostly good. Other people have some flaws, but they are mostly good, and that other people will love them. Other people can be trusted. And when there are little hurts, then very quickly all these other mechanisms kick in your psyche that say, okay, you're hurt right now, but one, you can probably trust the other person to not hurt you in the future, and you can probably trust the other person that they aren't trying to hurt you, and you can probably trust the other person that whatever hurt you're feeling might just sort of be an anomalous situation, it's the exception to the rule, not the rule. Me being hurt by this person is an exception and not the rule. And I can also trust that if things go badly here, that I can be okay on my own, and whether or not this relationship works out, my self-esteem doesn't hinge on this relationship working out. That if for whatever reason this relationship falls apart tomorrow, I know that I'm a good person because my parents and all those people around me made me feel like I was a good person, and that I don't need another person or a relationship to define who I am and to give me self-worth. I like relationships and I want relationships, and I will fight for those relationships, and I depend on other people. But worst comes to worst, something happens, I still have myself, I still have all the other people in my life. So that's what happens when you're raised well, is you very much need other people. You very much need other humans. We need attachments because that's what humans need. But your self-esteem and your stability and your sense of who you are doesn't hinge on the status of those relationships. Now, if a relationship ends, you're going to be very sad and you'll grieve that. You might even get kind of depressed, but you don't fall through the floor, if that makes any sense. Your self-esteem doesn't fall off a cliff. Your sense of who you are doesn't fall off a cliff. And when you do have that, anything that heads you in that direction or is perceived as heading in that direction, then you go into a state of panic and you will transform that fear into hostility and either withdrawing or attacking another person. And the two of them have handled a lot of little moments like that where there's a potential hurt, and they self-soothe seemingly, and they have benefit. They give the other person the benefit of the doubt. They have faith that things will work out, that this little incursion isn't a sign of a massive iceberg below the water that that is going to hurt them somehow. And so that's what we're seeing. Now, who knows? But I will say that I rarely get a chance to watch a couple who exhibits that behavior, because y'all will ask me to watch the Colt and Larissa's or the Darcys and the Jessies, which provides a lot of opportunity for me to react. But it is interesting to see that contrast there, and it is important for me to point out healthy behavior and healthy reactivity. Having said all that, there's a chance that Hazel feels backed into a corner because she doesn't have a lot of power. One, she's younger. Two, she could, at any point, if he doesn't want to be with her, he loses less than she loses, or at least maybe that's how she perceives it, because he loses a future wife, but she loses not only a future husband, but also a future life, not only for herself, but for her son. And I'm pretty sure, and she, I think, even said this much, that if she can get out of poverty, then she can finally get her son back and be reunited with her son. And so a lot hinges on that. And thus, even if she did feel like, I don't like this prenuptial agreement thing, but I have to agree to it, because if I don't and he rejects me, then where am I? So I have to just swallow what I really want and just put on a face of, yes, that sounds fine, I'm okay with that, and then she cries herself to sleep every night. I wish they would interview her more and we could get behind the scenes how she feels about things. This show often will do that, like with Ed and Rose. We rarely heard from Rose. We rarely heard from her perspective. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's a language thing, or maybe Hazel doesn't want to be interviewed. I don't know. But it just leaves a lot of questions. Is Hazel truly okay with it, as she just exhibited, or is she really not okay with it? It's just a big question mark. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. If you want to, you can subscribe. You can also like the video. I always like it when people like the video. If you hate the video, I suppose give a thumbs down as well. And if you're meh, then don't do either. Also, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.